Hotel Charlie Mike. 9 Hotel Charlie Mike, G1 UFN.
Yeah, G1 UFN, I think. G1 UFN, I think, from 9 Hotel 4 Charlie Mike. Good evening, my name is Charlie. I'm the QTH Gozo Island Malta QSL.
So Charlie, kif inti? Ili ma narak fuq il-vapor. Hope you're well. And nice to speak to you. Weather here is nice, beautiful. I'm located, name is here by the way. Name descent here is Sam Sierra Alpha Mike, located in Manchester, UK. 9H-1, Charlie Mike, G1 UFN.
If you could please stand by, gentlemen, the 9H-HAM GlobalNet is going to start very soon.
G1 UFN from 9 Hotel 4 Charlie Mike. Okay, I wish you 73s are going to start a net on here. Okay, I'm sorry, we've got to cut it short. 73s, keep safe. Bye-bye.
Okay, 73s, G1 UFN back to standby.
Digital BIA, 9H-1HA.
H-1 of the S standing by. Who's going to be in that control this evening?
To the other connections for our net. November 7 Alpha Papa Whiskey. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha. Use VMR to continue the net, Tony, please. Yes, you should be able to use VMR. You can connect to the VMR link. The VMR link is now not allowing me to connect either, for whatever reason. November 7 Alpha Papa Whiskey. You're coming in loud and clear on the 9H-1. One westbound. VMR radio, can I continue through here and continue the net? Go ahead. I am at the moment Jerry, I'm talking to you through DMR radio on channel on talk group 2780. And this is working fine.
And 9H1 UHF or not?
H1UHF.
Jerry.
My brother Charlie said I'm coming out on 9H1 UHF. So, let's give it another whirl. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. Stand by. Let's see, where were we? I think we were going to do some special thanks. Special thanks to 9H1SF, Stephen, for making this possible, to 9H5SN, Marco, and 9H1GP, Mark, for allowing the use of the 9H1 UHF-R repeater, to Antoine, 9H1US, and Herbert, 9H1DH, for allowing the use of the 9H1 DMR repeater, and to 9H5 Yankee Victor, Glenn, for allowing us to use the same branding as the 9H-HAM radio Facebook page, which he administers. I'd also like to thank everybody who's helping me get through this net today, because we seem to be having some connectivity issues using Echolink. The 9H1, the connection to 9H1 UHF gets dropped after about a minute. So I'm using my DMR radio, going through to the talk group 2780 on DMR, and continuing the net. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. I'll give a short pause, make sure everything is working, and we'll continue. Go 0, Bravo. The agenda for tonight will be checkers, announcements, and then after closing the net, we'll have our general discussion. The discussion topic for tonight is Linux for ham radio. Non-Hotel 5, Tango, Sugar, Trevor Thamut will be discussing basic aspects about Linux and what it has to offer to amateur radio. He'll also take some pauses in case there are any questions or comments during his presentation. This is Net Control, November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. I will also pause periodically for late check-ins. So, let's start the 9H-HAM GlobalNet. I'll now take check-ins from stations connected to the 9H1 UHF repeater. Please leave a 5-second pause between check-ins so that I can have time to write them down. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
Alpha Papa Whiskey from KM4PPV via Echolink. Please check me in. Sal from Richmond, Kentucky.
If I'm not hearing something and somebody else is, please feel free to relay the call signs. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, Golf 0, Bravo, India Alpha. Name's in. I'm coming in on the talk group. Having heard you've got that connected up, I did try my laptop, and it was dropping out, as you said. I came in on the phone, the smartphone, as you saw. I've changed. I'm on the talk group 2780 from Golf 0, Bravo, India Alpha.
NH1FBS is checking in from DMR. I tried checking in from UHF, but UHF is not coming in on DMR. So 9H1FBS is checking in.
Okay, this is Kilo Mike 4 Papa Papa Victor. Check it in the net. If we're having a connection problem, please relay my call sign KM4 PPV south from Richmond, Kentucky via Echolink.
9H-HAM. His name is Sal in South Kentucky.
Can you repeat his call sign, please?
Kilo Mike 4 Papa Papa Delta.
Kilo Mike 4 Papa Papa Victoria Victor.
Repeater. Anyone would like to check in through the 9H-1 BMR repeater? This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
This is 9 Hotel 5 Fox. Got no traffic.
Okay, I acknowledge 9 Hotel 5 Fox Alpha. Anyone else through the DMR repeater? Or the link on Echolink or Tog Group 2780 on DMR Worldwide.
Number 9, Hotel number 1, Mike Foxtrot. Operator's name Walter. Checking in, no traffic.
9 Hotel 1 Golf Papa. Checking in, 9H1 GP Mark and no traffic.
Currently, some of us are having trouble keeping the connection to the 9H1 UHF repeater via Echolink. It happened 2 weeks ago, and it's happening again today for some reason. I wonder if you have any idea what's going on. Go ahead.
No, negative. I have no idea. In fact, I tried to come in through Echolink on the UHF repeater, and I can just hear you occasionally. There's, I think, some issues with the Echolink. It's working perfectly here. I connected with my mobile phone to you directly, to 17APW, Jerry. I'm on DMR now, on top group 2780. I didn't manage to go through the 9H1 UHF. I mean, it looks like there are issues on Echolink. I don't know. I have to speak to Marco on that one. But I came on 2780 here, and it seems to be okay here, no problems. And 7APW, 9H1 GP.
Echolink has gone through an upgrade about 2 weeks ago, and I do have the upgrade, and I hope that's not the issue. But anyway, let's see. Any other check-ins from DMR? This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, Net Control Station for this evening session of the 9H-HAM GlobalNet.
What a strange, Jerry. I'm hearing myself now on 430875. Is that I'm connected to you directly, and I'm not hearing myself on the mobile phone. But no, I seems to be hearing myself on the UHF repeater. So it looks as the UHF repeater is working now. They are calling. Okay, but I'm not hearing myself. Let me disconnect from you there. And 7APW, I disconnected. but I'm listening to myself, my transmission on 9H1 UHF and 780W 9H1 GP.
And thank you very much to everybody for all your help today. Any other check-ins from any other, how about Jitsi? Are there hams on Jitsi who would like to check into the net?
Hotel 1 Echo Santiago. Good evening to everyone.
Checking in on the repeater.
Hotel 5 Tango Sierra checking in.
And see if I'll stay connected. If not, I'll come back here. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
9 Hotel 1 Tango Sierra is also checking in on 9H1 UHF.
H1 Alpha Juliet. Alpha Juliet also. Bravo Zulu, the Butch Gozo, 1 Joe, that is what I love tonight at IM. They have one repeater here, 9H1 is. They have fourth. Okay, thank you. Marka u karriera għaddejja ta' xaħta tjamas il-PTT ju? Memx ix-PTT.
This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey via DMR, hosting the 9 Hotel Ham GlobalNet this evening. I acknowledge 9 Hotel 1 Golf Papa, 9H1 Tango Sugar, 9H1 Echo Sugar, 9H1 Alpha Juliet, and 9H1 Bravo Zulu. I will take another pause for checkers, and then if someone has any announcements for the net, please let me know. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, Golf 1, Uniform Fox, November, checking in.
Golf 1 Uniform Foxtrot November has just checked in on the repeater.
Whiskey, Foxtrot 5, Juliet Lima Bravo, Jeff in Fort Worth, Texas, checking in.
DMR, otherwise I can't host the net. But we'll fix it. We'll fix it. And let's see, does anybody have any announcements for the net this evening? Please come now, give a little pause, because I might have to get your call sign relayed to me, but we'll get it done. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, standing by.
Kilo Charlie 1, November Oscar Charlie, KC1, NOC. Jerry, late check-in, if you can copy me. Echo Link was down. It appears to be coming back up now. So anyways, late check-in, KC1, NOC. Good evening to the net. David in Sherman, Maine.
David has just checked in vain.
Okay, I acknowledge KC1NOC. Good afternoon, Dave. Hope you're doing well. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. Anything for the net this evening? I'm a bit impaired. I cannot keep a connection up through Echolink via 9H1 UHF-R. And when I try to link to 9H1 DMR-L on Echolink, it tells me that it's busy. So it won't allow me to connect to 9H1 DMR-L. So I'm using talk group 2780 via DMR worldwide to conduct this net. And it seems to be working. But I can't hear anybody, and I do apologize about that. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, net control station for this evening's or this afternoon's. No, it is evening in Malta. This evening session of the 9H-HAM GlobalNet. Is there any other traffic for the net? And please be patient with me because I might need a relay. But is there any other traffic for the net before I pass it to Trevor for tonight's presentation? November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
I would suggest to you to connect direct to me, 9H1FVS, and maybe you can hear the repeater coming through me. Is that a Roger? Go ahead.
I wonder if I can be heard on the 9H1 UHF-R repeater. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
You can.
Hey, Jerry, I'm on the repeater, 9H1 UHF, and I copy you fine, even before. Go ahead.
Whiskey Fox 5 station from Fort Worth would like to come in as well, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody, for being patient this evening. Now I'm connected to 9H1FBS, who's connected to 9H1 UHF-R. Now, this is a bit puzzling, but that's the way it is right now. And one way or the other, we'll get it done. So, let me take any late check-ins for the net. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, net control station for this evening's session of the 9H-HAM GlobalNet standing by.
Let's retry. This is WF5JLB, Whiskey Foxtrot 5, Juliet Lima Bravo in Fort Worth, Texas. Late check-in. Hello to the net. Jeff here. Over.
Well, very good, Jeff. Nice to meet you. Good evening or good afternoon to you. WF5JLB. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey Net Control. Thank you for your patience and checking into the net. Any other check-ins or anybody with any announcements or anything before we pass it over to our presentation for today? November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
Number 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. I have a short announcement. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha.
Tony, the floor is yours. There's more than one way to connect. 9H5 Fox Alpha, November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
Control. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha. So I'd just like to notify that from next net, so within 2 weeks, when I post the promo, the usual promo I tend to post on various Facebook pages, within the text, I'm going to include a link, a new link, which will take you to a page where anyone can simply register their email address and can also unregister if they have already registered. What I will do with those email addresses, I will not subscribe them to any spam group, absolutely, but what I will do with those email addresses is that about 2 or 3 days before the net is due, I will send out calendar invites with the time and connection details for the net, so people can save those calendar invites in whatever calendar they use, basically. So I'm going to sort of highlight this new link with the next promo I'll send out. And if anyone wants to stop receiving the calendar invite, he can go back to the link and unsubscribe himself. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha, back to net control.
Well, thank you, Tony. I think that's a great idea. For somebody like me, I probably will look at the calendar way before I'll remember that. And I do remember, obviously. I haven't missed one yet. Fingers crossed. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, net control station for this evening's session of the 9H-HAM GlobalNet. Does anybody have anything else for the net before we pass it over to the presentation? As far as the presentation goes, I will close the net, and then there will be the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please direct them directly to the presenter, and that will make it more interesting and a bit more expeditious. That's a big word. This is November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, standing by for any other traffic for this net.
Zero Bravo India Alpha, if I may.
G0BIA and 7APW, go ahead.
Yes, N7APW G0BIA. Yeah, very good evening to everybody on frequency. Charlie, Anthony, Mark, Joe, Jeff and Dave. I've listened with great interest. I noticed Joe Aquilina is coming on, and we both said we'd be on tonight, but we probably both disappeared just before the talks started. I think Linux is beyond my scope at the moment, so I wish you all well. And I never like to drop out of a net without saying good night, or in your case, a Leila Dayab. So thank you for having me. I'm actually on Echo Link. I'm also on the talk group, so it's been fascinating just to see how we can conquer the vagaries of electronics and radio. So with that, I'm going to wish you 7 please. Saha, take care, and we'll see you next time. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, Golf Zero, Bravo, India Alpha, wishing everybody on frequency a very good night.
And to you as well, and thank you for checking in as well and attending the net. Yes, we've been on 9H1UHF-R. That seems to be dropping me after a while. I've held part of the net on the DMR talk group 2780, which is linked to the repeater and 9H1DMR as well. And now I'm connected to 9H1FBS, who's connected to 9H1UHF-R, and I'm getting out onto the net with the nice help of my brother. I'd like to thank everybody for all your help and your patience. I will give a short pause before closing the net and passing it over to Trevor. Is there any other traffic or any other comments for the 9H-HAM GlobalNet this evening? Okie dokie. Back to the script. With no additional traffic or comments for the net, this is Jerry, N7APW, Net Control Operator for this evening's edition of the 9H-HAM GlobalNet. There were, according to my book, 13 check-ins. No, let's make that 14 because I didn't count myself. This public service net meets every 2 weeks on Thursday night at 8 p.m. local time on Malta, or Central European Time. I'd like to thank everybody for all your patience and your support and your information that you've helped me along today with the net. I'd also like to thank the repeater trustees for the use of their repeater and everybody who has checked in, and to Trevor, who after I close the net will be giving the presentation. Let's see. After Trevor's presentation, we will probably also have Amateur Radio Newsline, which will be broadcast on the 9H-HAM YouTube page immediately after the presentation. I'm now returning the use of this repeater and all linked repeaters to normal amateur use. This is November 7 Alpha Papa Whiskey. I wish you 73s and good evening, and I'd like to invite Trevor to start his interesting presentation. November 7 Alpha Papa Whiskey.
This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. Thank you very much, November 7 Alpha Papa Whiskey. I'm giving just a brief pause there until the repeater connections drop in and out. Good evening, everyone, and good morning on whichever side of planet Earth you happen to be. Happy to see that today that you have many different ways of connecting is available, so well done to Jerry for the workaround there on the connection issue. I've never given an audio-only presentation on this topic, so I'll keep it simple and brief, and I'll give breaks for questions and any queries, curiosities you may have on the subject. I know it's a bit of a technical subject, but I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. And in essence, Linux, which is an operating system, okay, just as the same way you had many methods to connect to this repeater, you have many methods on using a computer. There are many operating systems available at your disposal. And one of the most beautiful options, I would argue, is one that is completely open source, completely free, and it's built by communities. And it predates the modern operating systems, including Windows to various aspects. So Windows is not the only choice that you have when using a computer, but there's of course the Linux choice. So quick break there. To carry on, so with Linux, I do have a few recommendations. I think the best way to go about it is to explain what I have, right? So Linux works really efficiently and really fast, especially on older systems. And as I speak to you guys, I have my radio log here, and I'm using an Intel NUC, a Core i3 processor PC. So it's a 7-year-old PC, I would say. And it can run Windows without much issue, but when you put Linux on it, it's a modern PC in terms of performance. And I'm very happy to do that because, first of all, it's free. I'm using existing hardware, relatively old hardware now, and I use it for ham radio, and ham radio, that's the spirit of ham radio, right? We share stuff with each other, we're open source for the most part, and we like to help each other out, and that's the spirit of it all, of sharing, of human to human, right? So I'll introduce the first operating system, Linux operating, and Linux, by the way, have a lot of choice, okay? So that's one of the things that can be overwhelming a bit. So in Linux you have a lot of choice on which type of Linux you would take, or you would choose to use, okay? In my case, I'm using MX Linux, and this is the one I recommend for the listeners here. And the reason I recommend it very much so is for the simple reason that you don't need to go into the command line interface and know special commands and be the tech guru to be able to use it. But it's very point and click interface. I would say it's even easier than Windows. But what you have to do as a user is to change your frame of mind that you have to find stuff and software that is for Linux, okay? So you can't, many mistakes or preconceptions I see when new users are using Linux for the first time is they want Microsoft Word on it, or they want, I don't know, Ham Radio Deluxe, okay, for Ham Radio. You have to find the alternatives, and there are plenty of alternatives, and again, you're essentially spoiled for choice here, and sometimes that's an issue because too much choice, right? Sometimes it's easier when companies don't give you choice and give you just one product. That's the only one you can choose. But it's not the case in Linux. So I would recommend on any machine MX Linux. You can go to the website of MX Linux, look it up on Google, okay? MX Linux. And for ham radio, I'll focus on ham radio because you can use it for anything you like. But for ham radio, I use, for logging programs, I use CQR log. And for satellite predictions, I use gpredict. So to monitor ISS parties and control the radio with the software to compensate for Doppler effects when you communicate with ISS, or try to anyway. So that's what I use. I use gpredict, and yeah, that's essentially it. The CQR log, this previous software that I mentioned, you can connect it to EQSL very easily, and you can connect it as well to Logbook of the World. Upload your certificates, your contact, your QSOs, and yeah, there you have it. And for media players, VLC, you might be familiar with it. It started from Linux, and yeah, that's the basic setup, the most basic setup you can use to connect your radio. I have a Yaesu 857 Delta here, and it's connected to this little machine, old machine that I have here, via USB, and I control the radio using CQR log by installing just one tiny driver. In Linux it's known as a daemon, okay? A daemon is a driver, and the one that I use is the RIC CTLD, RIC controller daemon, and you just click on it once, and then the program and the software can control the radio in real time by using the logbook. So that's a simple setup there. I'm going to give a bit of a break, and feel free to ask any questions, curiosities you may have, and won't hold it much longer, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra on repeater GlobalNet, and give me a bit of a few minutes break.
November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey, with a question or two.
Okay, this is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra returning here. Okay, I can mention a few more Linux distributions, okay? They're called distributions or flavors and choices that you have. You may be familiar with Ubuntu, okay? Linux for Human Beings is the logo. And I'm using MX Linux here, and there are other options like Fedora and CentOS. Now, some distributions are better than others for different purposes. So normally in a corporate environment, you have servers, you're going to find Red Hat, and you're going to find CentOS, right? But for us amateurs and daily use, daily drivers here, I think you'll have a fantastic machines with MX Linux. You can install Kodi on it and have some fun there with your media library and streaming and whatever you may choose to use Kodi for. Again, Kodi is another example of a Linux project that eventually went onto Windows. Same thing with gpredict, VLC. VLC's media player that used to play all kinds of media without you installing any codecs. That was a first at the time, and yes, they started off from Linux distributions. So, yeah, I'll keep myself available here on the net. I think Jerry is already a bunch of information there. You can look me up on QRZ. It's 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. There are my contact details there. Any questions or queries about? I'm here on the net, and Jerry, you might choose to go a bit round robin or ask for any queries there. I'll go back to you. Net control. That's a quick presentation from my end. Audio only presentation. So it's a first. Hi, and it's been quite a pleasure. Net control M780W. This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. Microphone back to you, my friend. Net control, November 7 Alpha Papa Whiskey. I had a short question for Trevor, please. Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. Net control and 7APW. We do not copy you on the repeater. So, but I heard a question request by 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha. So I'll give him the go-ahead so he doesn't keep waiting, okay? So, Tony, go ahead. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha. What is your experience, your general experience with hardware support on Linux? I guess that is one of the issues which plagues some people. I mean, and how difficult is it to actually find drivers to control different models of radios? Do you have any experience with that? 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha. Yes, Tony, I believe that's a very good question, very good question. When I buy hardware, and I think this should be best practice for any kind of hardware that you buy, right? So when I bought my Yaesu radio, starting from the radio itself, first thing I checked is how compatible or what communication lines it uses to communicate with a PC. And I'm very happy to say that ICOM and Yaesu and the rest, or they all use very simple communication protocols like serial. Even if it's on USB, it's a simple type of communication. So that's good. That's international. That's a known standard, right? In terms of PCs, I'm using Intel NUC NUC here. And yes, some hardware can play really nasty, both with Windows, but especially with Linux. And usually such hardware is related to Bluetooth, believe it or not, and video cards. The rest is usually just click and automatic installations without issues at all. But when you have specialized hardware and for some reason sound cards and video cards, you can have issues there. But with MX Linux and these distributions that I mentioned and Ubuntu as well, these issues are almost non-existent today, right? So when you see hardware, what I recommend is that when you buy hardware, PC hardware, okay, if it's certified for Linux, it's going to work out of the box. So that is the ideal scenario that require no tweaking whatsoever. So if you have, for example, a Raspberry Pi, okay? Raspberry Pi is this little machine, very powerful machine for the size, okay? The Raspberry Pi project has been Linux from the start. In fact, it may have issues in running Windows, actually. But it's been Linux optimized from the factory. That was the goal of the project. So if you buy such hardware, you're going to have the best experience ever. Of course, you have to keep in mind what architecture you're buying as well. In terms of Raspberry Pi, you're buying a specific architecture that you need specific Linux for it. So you can still you have to find a distribution for Raspberry Pi, which are very, very common. Because why? Because the project, Raspberry Pi project, has been Linux focused from the start. So, for example, you need to install Raspbian for it, which when you actually come to use it, it's the Debian base. So it's very similar to Ubuntu, very similar to MX Linux. So the experience is kind of the same. But the operating system would be further optimized for that specific hardware, which in this case would be Raspberry Pi. But if you have a normal PC, right? Let's talk about normal PCs you built yourself, maybe. Yes, you might have encountered some issues with video cards, sometimes with NVIDIA hardware. But nowadays, NVIDIA released its own Linux packages, so it's a simple download of a file or two. You just run it, a deb file, double-click, installation, and you're up and running. It's not dissimilar from what you would experience in Windows. But yes, if you have the choice and you're still shopping around and seeing what hardware you want to buy, I would recommend you buy, the most common type of hardware. I've encountered a bit of an issue with SDR radio, with SDR Play, for example, a bit of a unique SDR hardware that doesn't yet support Linux. But this is a rare occasion mostly today. So for SDRs, if you buy, for example, any RTL SDR device, the whole RTL architecture is all commendable and usable on Linux without issues. So yeah, if you have the option, just read up some documentation. But for the most part, you're going to work, Tony. I don't know if I've answered your question that way.
Thanks. Thank you, Trevor. Thanks, I appreciate it. Okay, I've taken some notes, actually. All right. A popular device which features on a number of YouTube videos actually is the Raspberry Pi, which you mentioned. And I believe there are a fair amount of applications specifically designed for ham radio, which are also designed to run on this device. So this device is the size of a packet of cigarettes, basically, but it's especially the latest versions of it, the version 4 of the Raspberry Pi, is actually a pretty powerful device. Of course, one of the older ones, but the last version, and it's extremely portable, and it runs off a 5-volt adapter. So you can actually stick it in your pocket and take it around wherever you want to. And I believe there are there's a fairly good selection of applications designed for ham radio. So sort of people want to search those on YouTube. There's some very interesting information, and there is a Linux version, as Trevor said, which is specifically designed for that Raspberry Pi and works out of the box. But I was sort of looking at other applications too. So I made a note of the applications you mentioned, the ones for the MX Linux. I'll give them a shot. Thanks, Trevor. Back to control station. Jerry is still with us at the moment. This is 9 Hotel 5 Foxtrot Alpha.
Yeah, I'm actually listening still. And Trevor, you continue, but after you're done, I'll take it over because I think I found a solution to the people who are having issues staying connected to the 9H-1 UHF repeater and possibly other nodes on Echolink. And I also have a question for you while I have the mic. I have an old laptop that's running Windows 8 or something. And obviously to change that to run MX Linux, can you walk us through the process? I'm not sure you have, because like I said, I've been doing some testing, and thank you for the opportunity, because I think I'm back into the 9H-1 UHF repeater reliably now. Trevor, back to you, November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra, Trevor here. Full copy, no issues now. Fantastic. Yes, so for Tony, you were right, Tony. It's the Raspberry Pi is wonderful hardware, especially the latest one, the Raspberry Pi 4. I don't have it yet, but I used it for a while. For the size, it's impressive performance. But I repeat, it's for the size. But the latest Raspberry Pi 4. That is something, and the performance really shines because it specifically uses Linux. There would be no way that if you put Windows on it, you're going to get the same performance. So that's fantastic. Linux is very optimized. You say encoding, it's a very optimized operating system, especially when you put Raspbian on it. So if you want a list of operating systems for Raspberry Pi, you can go to raspberrypi.org/software. And there's an image there you can download and install on your Raspberry Pi on an SD card. That's a bit different than normal PC. And Jerry, yes, you asked on MX Linux. So essentially, what you would do is, if you have any PC running around, okay, you need to first create a bootable image on a pen drive, on a USB drive, or a USB drive would be best. I would say for that type of hardware that you mentioned. And you go download on mxlinux.org, and you download the 64-bit edition, unless you have a really old laptop, and you download the x64 ISO, and you store it on your PC there, ready to create a bootable pen drive, right? Now, how do you create a bootable pen drive? The simplest way is via software that is available for Linux and Windows. So if you have a Windows machine and you just want to prepare an image on it, it's called Rufus, R-U-F-U-S. So I'll see the website here. If you go on Google and you Google Rufus, it's a little program, a few kilobytes in size, portable. You don't even have to install it. It's a copy and paste thing. It's a portable application. You just indicate the ISO file that you just downloaded from mxlinux.org, and it will automatically detect your pen drive. Remember, it's going to format your pen drive as well, so make sure you don't have any precious photos or data on the pen drive. That's going to be erased. And it creates a bootable pen drive for you. Now, what do you do with a bootable pen drive? Once you're ready, you stick it in your old laptop there that you want to breathe fresh life into. Go to BIOS and see that it boots the pen drive, and you just have to boot the pen drive the same way you would install Windows, right? And then you get a wizard. And the beautiful thing is, for MX Linux, is you get a live version of it. So without ever touching your PC, okay, you can actually use MX Linux, but that would be a live installation. Almost everything will work in a live installation, except certain drivers. So, not drivers, certain installations that take, where there's a wizard and you need to install specific programs. Those won't work, or will tell you need to install the whole OS. But you can actually try, without ever touching your machine, through a live installation, a live running of MX Linux, and Ubuntu can do that as well. And you can install MX Linux from the live installation while you are using MX Linux. So this is unheard of in Windows. Installing the operating system while you are actually using it. So, give you a bit of extra information there, Net Control. 9 Hotel 5, Tango Chair. Back to you, Net Control.
Well, thank you very much. That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of fun to experiment with, especially with a laptop that just there in the corner gathering dust. Listen, let me pass it back to you. You have the floor. It's a wonderful presentation, and after you're done, please let me know, and I'll share with everybody what I had to do. It's a minor change on the new version of Echolink that will make this issue disappear. And thanks to you and your presentation, I was playing and experimenting in the background, and I obviously, since I'm now connected to 9H-1 UHF-R, have found the solution, or so it seems. Trevor, back to you, and continue with your presentation, Q&A, and then just pass it back to me way at the end. And thank you very much for your presentation. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey.
Thank you, Net Control. This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. I think we can take, if there's any more questions, we can take one or two max. And that concludes my presentation Q&A session. So, leaving the floor and microphone available for anyone who has any extra questions, if any. 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra, standing by and listening. This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. I see there were no further queries. Of course, I'm always available with you friends, so you have my contact details. Look me up on qrz.com. This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. Thank you very much for inviting me for this presentation on the net. Certainly my first, I'm getting some experience here on, on these type of nets. I find them really fantastic and informative as well. So microphone back to Net Control for you to carry on with the session of HAMNet GlobalNet. This is 9 Hotel 5 Tango Sierra. I'm standing by on repeater. Back to you, Net Control.
Very good, Trevor. Excellent presentation, and thank you for answering my questions as well. Something new to play with. Okay, this is N7APW. Net Control Station for this evening session of the 9H-HAM GlobalNet. I do have a solution, it seems, to the issue with Echolink staying connected to the 9H1 UHF-R repeater. And this is the solution. While we were talking and while we were going through the net, one of the solutions that we had is I connected to my brother 9H1FBS through Echolink. And then all of a sudden, since he was connected to 9H1 UHF-R, I could obviously continue the net using Charlie as a proxy. And I know that Charlie doesn't have the ports open, 5198, 5199, and 5200. Well, apparently that's where the problem is. I have the ports open, and I updated my software on Echolink. And I did not change it from a direct connection to a proxy because I never had to. Now let me give a pause here and I'll be right back. And so it occurred to me that maybe that was the issue, and apparently it is, because I went into the new version of Echolink, which had the same defaults as the old version that I had. And I changed from no proxy to choose a public server on proxy. And then I chose one from Spain, and all of a sudden everything came back to life. Another telltale sign that you know, not all traffic is passing through is I connected to the 9H1 UHF repeater on Echolink while Trevor was giving his presentation. And if I connected to Charlie, I could hear Trevor. If I connected directly to the 9H1 UHF repeater on Echolink, I couldn't hear the traffic. So, in order to make this short and simple, and I'll stand by for any repeats or questions, let me tell you where to go to make this change. But before, let me pause. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. For those who are having issues staying connected to the 9H1 UHF repeater and probably other nodes on Echolink, and they are using the new version of Echolink that came out about 2 weeks ago. And incidentally, there's also a new version for the phone. You go to Tools, you go to Setup, and you go to Proxy. And if the box that's checked is No Proxy, change that to Connect Public Server or Public Proxy. I forgot what exactly it says. And then update the list of proxy servers and choose one. It seems like the EA5 proxies seem to be quite reliable. So I chose one of those. I updated. I closed Echolink and opened it up again. And all of a sudden, I connect 9H1 UHF-R, and it's not dropping me off. So to repeat one more time, go to Setup, go to Tools, go to Setup, and go to Proxy. And if you are connected directly, connect through a proxy server, even though you have the ports open like I do. But it seems like they're having an issue with that now, so maybe we don't need any ports anymore, which is kind of nice for most people. So let me pause here and see if there are any comments or questions. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey. And 7 APW. All right, hearing nothing, thank you very much for attending the net. 73s, good evening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. November 7, Alpha Papa Whiskey Clear.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2265, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. There's news of interest to microwave operators.
There's good news for hams who enjoy operations on the frequencies between 3.3 and 3.45 gigahertz. Amateur radio operators may continue using this segment of the band indefinitely. The FCC's announcement this month is seen by many, including the ARRL, as an alternative to ham radio's removal from the entire band. It also adds 50 more megahertz than the FCC's original proposal for amateur secondary operations on the band. Meanwhile, auctions seeking commercial 5G buyers have begun for frequencies between 3.45 and 3.55 gigahertz. And amateurs have been told to cease secondary operation in the 3.45 to 3.50 gigahertz band 90 days after public notice is given that the auction has closed and licensing has commenced. The FCC has identified 3.45 gigahertz as the frequency at which the band will be split. Hams will continue to operate in the band's lower frequencies while the FCC reviews whether or not to reallocate that part of the spectrum later.
Newsline anchor Jim Dameron, N8TMW reporting. Across the pond, the amateur radio license is getting a new look in the UK, and hams there are getting a sneak peek.
Hams in the UK can get a preview of what the new amateur radio license will look like by visiting the website of Ofcom. It's available there in draft form, and comments are being accepted until the 18th of April. The new license will become effective on the 18th of May and contains a number of changes, including details about electromagnetic field exposure compliance. The EMF wording has been somewhat controversial amongst some amateurs who consider its inclusion unnecessary. Ofcom have also opted to delete the reference to the old full reciprocal license that was abolished in 2016. See the printed version of this script at arnewsline.org to find the the URL where you can download a PDF of the draft license or to submit your comments. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jeremy Boot, G4NJH.
There's a first for everything, and one group of ham radio operators has decided it's time for them all to jump into the water, at least figuratively, for their first D-expedition.
This is going to be a summer of firsts for the amateur radio team descending on C6A, Islands on the Air with designator NA048 and FL05, also known as Bimini Island in the Bahamas. According to DJ N4RRR, one of the organizers, it will be a first D-expedition for everyone on the team, which includes some disabled military veterans. DJ said that because the Caribbean island is also a prime tourist destination, some of the hams will be bringing their wives for vacation activities. The hams have applied to use the call sign C6AHA. He said some of their antennas will be positioned to enable Europe, Pacific Islands, and Australia to get C6A in their logs. DJ told Newsline, quote, "We plan to light up C6A for everyone to get it in their logbooks," adding that we hope people will be nice and forgiving with us and let us make the most of this trip, being first-timers receiving pile-ups. The trip is scheduled for July 14th through the 21st. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jack Parker, W8ISH.
Another reminder, the nominating period for the 2021 Newsline Bill Pasternak WA6ITF Young Ham of the Year Award is now open. You'll find the nominating form and all information on our website, arnewsline.org. The presentation will take place at the Huntsville Hamfest in August. You'll find more on the Huntsville Hamfest at hamfest.org, and we look forward to seeing you there. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With Jim Dameron, N8TMW, Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, Jack Parker, W8ISH, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe, I'm Don Wellbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation.
Newsline report number 2266 with a release date of Friday, April 2nd, 2021, to follow in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The following is a QST. The UK prepares to resume in-person license exams. A worldwide balloon launch marks the equinox. And the Last Man Standing special event goes out with a bang. All this and more as Amateur Radio Newsline report number 2266 comes your way right now.
From around the world, this is Newsline, amateur radio's independent on-the-air news and bulletin service. Now, reporting from Bloomington, Indiana, here's Neil Rapp, WB9VPG.
Our top story takes us to a frozen Arctic island where the rewards of a physically grueling de-expedition included something even more than the thousands of contacts logged by the team. Graham Kemp, VK4BB, brings us that story.
The RI-0Q de-expeditioners have arrived back on the mainland following a challenging but successful activation of the rare Arctic iota AS-152. The island, named Bolshoi Begachev after its discoverer Nikifor Begachev in 1908, held many discoveries for the team during their one-week activation. Challenges included making a large part of the trip by snowmobile. Once they arrived on March 20, they remained constantly vigilant for polar bears, wolves and incoming blizzards, especially as they were setting up for operations. By March 26th, as the activation was winding down, they were able to enter into their online diary that they'd logged 6,913 QSOs, representing more than 4,000 unique call signs. Their departure came just as a blizzard was supposed to come blasting in. There was one event they did not miss, however, nor did they want to miss it because it was spectacular. DX WorldNet reported on its Twitter feed March 27, and I quote, "The RI-0Q team are already back on the mainland. As they left the island, the northern lights started to show. Looks like they left at the right time." End quote. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Graham Kemp, VK4BB.
Congratulations to the activators of the Last Man Standing special event, which went QRT on Wednesday, March 30th. Starting on March 24th, the team logged more than 85,000 QSOs, contacting 1,850 counties in 50 states and 138 countries. There were 134 contacts using Moonbounce, and yes, there were pile-ups. The multi-mode effort was also a multimedia one, featuring live streaming of operators as they navigated pile-ups. Coordinated by Lou Maggio, NO2C, and Sally Rosato, K2RYD, of the Great South Bay Amateur Radio Club, and the show's executive producer, John Amadeo, AA6JA, it was an experience many of the dozens of operators in both the U.S. and Canada said will remain with them even as the studio goes dark after the show's final day of production. Last Man Standing featured Tim Allen, KK6OTD, as Mike Baxter, KA0XTT, and was celebrated for putting amateur radio in a positive light in the public eye. In the UK, the Radio Society of Great Britain has resumed booking in-person exams. Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, gives us those details.
Examiners in the UK have begun planning the resumption of exams for amateur radio candidates wishing to sit them in a club setting with an in-person invigilation. With this in mind, the Radio Society of Great Britain said it anticipates booking for the in-person exams from club examination secretaries once the government has lifted all COVID-19 restrictions in their part of the UK. The booking process is expected to be more streamlined than previously. The remote invigilations, which began last year during the pandemic lockdown, will continue as an option. Mandatory practical assessments at foundation level will remain suspended until a review led by the Examination Standards Committee and Exam and Syllabus Review Group can determine their long-term future, clarifying whether they should continue and if so in what form. In yet another sign of post-COVID life in the UK, the RSGB Contest Committee began accepting portable entries in contests from stations in England, provided the stations strictly follow local COVID measures. England dropped its stay-at-home restriction on the 29th of March, meaning portable operations can resume. The RSGB cautions, however, that portable multi-operator entries must comprise people from the same households because vans, cars and tents are considered indoor environments and indoor mixing of households is still prohibited. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jeremy Boot, G4NJH.
In other business that has caught Newsline's attention, Paul Devlin, G1SMP, the joint winner with the Radio Society of Great Britain of the 2020 Amateur Radio Newsline International Newsmaker of the Year Award for the Get on the Air to Care public campaign, is standing for election as a director of the RSGB board at the upcoming AGM in April. As there are two nominees for two positions, I think we can say Paul will be elected. And we at Newsline would like to be the first to congratulate Paul and wish him well in his new role. In Alabama, where tornadoes raged through part of the landscape in late March, one radio amateur made an especially painful discovery about the importance of preparedness. Randy Sly, W4XJ, brings us that story.
James Spann, W04W, is no stranger to severe weather. As chief meteorologist for WBMA in Birmingham, Alabama, he is a familiar TV face during tornado activations, always reminding viewers that they need a severe weather plan. In fact, when he and his wife built a new home a few years ago, they included a storm shelter. Last week, tornadoes and other severe weather pummeled the state, wrecking buildings and killing at least 5 people in one county. During his report on a long track of violent storms, he suddenly said, "What I'm doing is texting my wife to be sure she's in the shelter." He moved off camera with a coworker taking over. Rejoining less than 15 minutes later, he shared some bad news with his viewers. His home was hit by a tornado. "The reason I had to step out," he explained, "we had major damage at my house. I had to be sure. My wife is okay, but the tornado came right through there, and it's not good. It's bad. It's bad." However, their preparedness made the difference. "My wife got the warning," he said. "She had a plan. She was in the shelter, and she's fine." Then Spann went back to work, making sure others would be informed and safe, too. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Randy Sly, W4XJ.
If you missed the HAMSci virtual event, which was live streamed on March 19th and 20th, you can attend via YouTube, where video recordings of the workshops are now available. This is the second year HAMSci went virtual in response to the global pandemic. The free program, supported by the National Science Foundation and the University of Scranton, featured presenters on such topics as personal space weather stations, mid-latitude sporadic E, weak signal VHF propagation, and related topics. A link to the recorded programming for days 1 and 2 can be found in the printed version of this week's newscast script at arnewsline.org. Spring in the Northern Hemisphere isn't just about flowers waking up and starting to bloom. It's also about balloons. Mike Askins, KE5CXP, explains.
When the medium-altitude balloon launched by science teacher Jill Gravante took to the sky on March 20th from an upstate New York junior high school, the event was part of a wide-ranging celebration dispatching 14 such balloons, linking students and teachers involved in STEM activities worldwide. In what was called the Equinox Balloon Launch, each balloon carried a lightweight Skytracker, APRS, and WSPR payload, all solar-powered. They were launched from various spots in the U.S., Argentina, and Australia on paths that 1 week later had them sailing over Siberia, China, and South Africa. After the launch at Winburn Middle School in Kentucky, science teacher Jenny McCall and Ron Malinowski, WX4GPS, later tracked the balloon named Bessie over southern Siberia, heading into Mongolia. Although it's not spring in his part of the world, the launch even attracted involvement by Melbourne teacher Greg Hellard. Bill Brown, WB8ELK, the designer of the Skytracker technology, said the launches were coordinated by Washington State High School teacher Trevor McDuff, KS1LAS, with the help from Los Angeles science educator Joanne Michael, KM6BWB. The enthusiasm, however, needed no coordination at all. In fact, Joanne posted on Facebook that befitting a project that involved students, it was a textbook launch. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Mike Askins, KE5CXP.
Time for you to identify your station. We are the Amateur Radio Newsline, heard on bulletin stations around the world, including WA5AIR, the Texas Link System, which carries Newsline on 7 repeaters on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. local time. Do you have an opinion on radio spectrum use in Australia? Well, the Australian Communications and Media Authority wants to hear from you. Here's John Williams, VK4JJW.
The ACMA is looking for input on a draft of its 5-year spectrum plan, a key document that will guide its priorities in allocating and managing frequencies in the years ahead. The proposed changes are being drawn up in consultation with members of the telecommunications industry, radio hobbyists, and others in the community. This is the first such draft to be created under the Radio Communications Legislation Amendment, Reform and Modernisation Act of 2020. Priorities are expected to be heavily impacted by the ACMA's goal to support deployment of 5G services throughout Australia. A review is also ongoing to replace apparatus licenses with non-assigned amateur licensing arrangements as a way of keeping licensees' costs affordable and to reduce the burden on regulators. The ACMA has a number of options for replacing the current apparatus license, but prefers the establishment of non-assigned amateur and outpost stations under a class license. The agency also plans to review the prospect of creating licenses for higher power operations and intends to consult with the amateur community on this issue. Feedback may be submitted to the ACMA no later than April 28th. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm John Williams, VK4JJW.
The Ogden Amateur Radio Club, one of Utah's oldest ham radio clubs, bears the call sign of its founder, Dr. W. Glenn Garner, W7SU. He became its first president shortly after its founding 100 years ago this May. The club is marking its centennial with an array of activities, including a special event station in May and a centennial QSL card contest for its members. Newsline congratulates the Ogden Amateurs on 100 great years. IARU Region 1 is assessing its future and hoping for a younger perspective. Here's Ed Durant, DD5 LP, to tell us what's up next.
Faced with eroding enrolment in many of its member societies, IARU Region 1 has begun organising a workshop on keeping amateur radio vibrant as licensees age. Discussions about the workshop were held at its general conference on March 24th. The workshop itself will be held in October of this year, hosted by the Serbian Amateur Radio Society. If COVID restrictions are still in place at the time, the workshop will be conducted virtually instead. Participants are particularly concerned about the lack of top leadership among amateurs 35 and younger. The committee wrote on the IARU website, quote, "The IARU Region 1 Executive Committee shares that it's time for change and we need to start moving forward, working together and changing the current trends. We need to focus our thinking and way of operating," end quote. Towards that end, the committee said it was committed to bringing new people into the discussion. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Ed Durant, DD5 LP.
RF control links being used at 420 and 430 megahertz to set up a linked repeater system in New Mexico are being cited as potential sources of interference to critical systems at the nearby White Sands Missile Range, the largest open-air test range of the United States Department of Defense. The department's regional spectrum coordinator, the FCC, and the ARRL worked together to track down the amateur radio communications, which were discovered to come from the repeater system's RF control links on 70 centimeters. Amateur radio is a secondary service on the band. The owners of the control links have been asked to re-coordinate the frequencies by May 31st. A popular net among the youngest amateurs in New Zealand just got a little bigger and a little more ambitious. Jim Meechan, ZL2 BHF, tells us how they're growing.
Like everything that starts out in life young and small, the net formerly known as Young Transmitters New Zealand has grown up. It has rebranded and expanded to become the Iota Oceania Net. The net's founder, Thomas Bernard, ZL3TOM, announced the change in a recent newsletter, telling Newsline that the net is now run in partnership with youngsters on the air, recognizing that participants hope to connect with other hams in more regions than before. The net is held Mondays at 0600 UTC on All-Star and Echolink. Tom uses the special event call sign ZL6YOTA during the net to encourage more young amateurs to check in. For more information about the net and ways to join this growing community, visit his website at zl3tom.com. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jim Meechan, ZL2BHF.
In the world of DX, Matthew M0ZMS has announced he will be heading to the Falkland Islands at the end of April and hopes to get on the air from this rare DX using the call sign VP8ZMS. He may also use the call sign VP8RAF on occasion. Matthew will be promoting awareness of the Royal Air Force Amateur Radio Society. Matthew is the serving members representative of the society and will be deploying to the British Forces South Atlantic Islands Mount Pleasant Complex for the activation. Find his operating details and other information on the Twitter page for VP2ZMS. He will QSL on Logbook the World and Club Log and will issue paper QSL cards upon his return to the UK after August. Be listening for John MW1CFN operating as GB1004FTS from Angsley Island off the Welsh mainland's northwest coast until April 8th. He is marking the 100th anniversary of the Royal Air Force's No. 4 Flying Training School. Listen for him on various HF bands as well as 6 and 2 meters. He will be using single sideband and the digital modes. Send QSLs directly to his home call. Danish radio amateurs are active with 2 special call signs, OZ75BO and OZ75MAY, until April 11th to mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Bornholm Island following the end of World War II. Be listening on all bands, including the work bands, where operators will be using CW, single sideband, and all the digital modes. Operators on the island itself will be using the OZ75BO call. Send QSLs via OZ1ACB or Club Log's OQRS. Operators prefer to not receive a paper QSL card. A special award is available. We end this week with the story of a grateful graduate of an Indiana college. He and his wife have given the school the gift of amateur radio. Here's Dave Parks, WB8ODF, with that story.
Bill Becker, AA8RW, may have graduated from college in Indiana in 1950, but to a small group of undergrads studying there now, he is undisputably the big man on campus. During Bill's time as a radio engineering student, the Angola, Indiana school was known as Tri-State College. Today its name is Trine University, and its campus is where the Michigan resident and his wife Helen, KG8TQ, recently helped awaken the Students Amateur Radio Club from dormancy by donating money and equipment. Many of the 15 members are studying electrical engineering as Bill did, or other forms of engineering and information technology. When they're not tending to their academic obligations, they're hosting the weekly net of the Trine University Amateur Radio Club. According to the university's website, the young hams are also mentoring would-be licensees and building new equipment and antennas. The club's president, Tim Mayer, KD2TCP, licensed for 2 years and majoring in mechanical engineering, said, "The club also hopes to get involved next in EME and satellite communications. The students can look forward to aiming for the sky because of this generous husband and wife who never forgot the thrill of keying the mic or sending some CW and discovering the world," said faculty advisor Kevin Wolverton, KW9S. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible to start and continue. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Dave Parks, WB8ODF.
With thanks to the ACMA, Amateur News Weekly, the ARRL, Bill Brown, WBADLK, CQ Magazine, David Behar, K7DB, DXWorld.net, HamSci, IARU Region 1, Last Man Standing Special Event, RI0Q Online Diary, Trine University, Ogden Amateur Radio Club, Ohio Penn DX Newsletter, QRZ.com, Radio World, Radio Society of Great Britain, Southgate Amateur Radio News, ShortwaveRadio.de, Twitter, Ted Randall's QSO Radio Show, the Wireless Institute of Australia, WTWW Shortwave, and you, our listeners. That's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline. Please send emails to our address at newsline@arnewsline.org. More information is available at Amateur Radio Newsline's only official website at arnewsline.org. For now, with Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team worldwide, I'm Neil Rapp, WB9VPG in Bloomington, Indiana, saying 7-3, and as always, we thank you for listening. Amateur Radio Newsline is copyright 2021, all rights reserved.